Hello and welcome to another video, and what is this? We're talking about MechWarrior Online, as there is an important update relating to the combined queues. Now, I don't think I made a video or talked about this previously when they initially started the combined queues, but a summary of that is previously on MechWarrior Online, we had separated solo queues and group queues. But what they did is they take those two and smash them together. Now, every single team can have up to one group, and that group can be up to 4 players. So, let's say, for example, we have 2 4-man groups. In the Matchmaker, it would assign one of them to each team, then it would backfill whatever remaining slots with solo players, in order to balance out the weight classes and PSR between them. That was 4 weeks ago. I played some matches when they were first setting up that system. Still felt like regular old MechWarrior, but hey, matches were much faster. That was good. But now it's been 4 weeks. They have their final results and their decisions for the future. So let's go over them. So 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks are up. Wanted to share the findings. The last time I communicated the Matchmaker configurations, it was in this manner. So we have primarily looking at tier balancing with a little bit of weight class and a little bit on speed. You can see that there was a certain amount of wait time in seconds. The weight class distribution between lights, mediums, heavies, and assaults are pretty even. There's a couple variations, say this team had 5 lights, where this team, comparatively across them, only had 4, and some tier PSR deviations where some lower ones, 89-15, but generally it's the 200-300 range for PSR. What I didn't tell you is that 2 Fridays ago, after reading all the comments and watching some videos by the community, I made this adjustment to see what would happen. So we took Matchmaker speed and tier balancing weight class, moved it from here-ish, and moved it down towards tighter balancing of tier and away from weight class as well. So we can see here that there are some more varied weight class distributions, such as, say, like this team had a lot of lights and heavies, but had no mediums, where the other team had a bunch of mediums to compensate. So a little bit different weight class. We compare the weight times, the first one, 95, 100, 47, 81, sort of like the 50 to 100-ish. And look at the weight times of the second one. The times did increase. This is more of like the 100 to maybe 130, 40-ish seconds. However, the tier PSR deviations went down. On the first one, it was like 200, 300. As you can see now, it is this sort of 100 to 200 range, with as well several of them that are below 100. So, tighter tier balancing. Hopefully, more balanced matches. Let's go over what he said here. Basically, I decreased the weight class value to no longer allow it to open completely. I also reduced the allowable tier spread and increased how long the Matchmaker would wait until it added another tier for a viable tier composition. As you can see, the average team PSR values narrowed drastically between any 2 opposing teams. The weight class balance would open up to maximum first, then eventually tier separation would open up. This is why at times in the above graphic, we will still have our tight tier separation, but the weight class balance will be a little lopsided. These settings seem to be working well in terms of finding a relative happy medium. Matches are still kicking off much faster than before. And I'm assuming when they say before, as in before this entire update, and not just like before with the difference between these two, but the difference between these two and separated queues. Tier PSR separation is drastically tighter than before, and weight class balancing is also much tighter than before. So before we had these two separate ones, once we brought them together, everything is doing a little bit better, which you would expect. We take two separate buckets of players and we pour them together. So now the matchmaker has a simpler job because it has more pieces to work with. If you are meant to balance, say, a group of weights on a scale, the more weights of varying sizes that you have, the easier that is, because you can fine tune it by taking that weight off and putting this other weight on. If you didn't have these options, it would be more difficult. So as just the fact that we combined would lead to these being the expected result. On another note, when we just combined the queues, stomp rates went up by 5%. With the current settings in the matchmaker, this went back down to 1%. Now, semantics with the numbers here. Stomp rates went up by 5%. Is that an absolute 5% or a relative 5%? And why that's important. Let's just say, for example, stomp rates were at 20%, because that is a really good way with these numbers. It works out quite easily. So 0.2, 20%. If that was a relative increase of 5%, you would take our 20 and times it by 5 to get 1%. Add that back to our original 20 and you get 21%. So a relative increase from 20 to 21% is a 5% increase. But an absolute increase would be 20% plus 0.05, not times, which would make it up to 25%. 25 is an absolute increase from 20 of 5%. So was it absolute or relative for their stomp rates? They're not saying here. However, when they say here, with the current settings in the matchmaker, this went back down to 1%. If we take this same example and 0.2 for our 20% times 0.01, we get 20.2% for a relative increase of 1%. Where for it's an absolute increase of 1%, it'd be 0.2 plus 0.01, 21%. It's only 0.8% difference if we have 20% as our representative example here. So the fact that this here is only 1% doesn't really matter if it's relative or absolute, because the numbers would be so close to each other. So there are some semantics there, but it's okay in the long run. It is because of these results we have decided to keep the current combined queue. So that is it from now on. If you play MechWarrior, you have one queue for quick play and one queue for, I think, one queue for faction. I haven't touched faction in more than a year, so I can't remember. But you have one queue for quick play. No longer is it solo and group, it's just quick play. You can have up to 4 people in your party, and if you do that, you'll be the only party on that team. Okay. I am fine with that. However, big, bold, and red, however, there is still an elephant in the room. PSR calculations. Oh, we're going there. Yes, it is true that it biases upward movement. That bias comes from the formula currently saying that if you lose, you can still move up if you perform well. This is the aspect that breaks zero-sum distribution. So let's unpack that because there's a bit of information there. Currently, in the system, if I'm playing my heart out and the rest of my team are potatoes, and I get 1,000 damage, but everybody else in the rest of the team doesn't even come to my damage combined, I will still move up in my PSR, even though I lost. Because it goes, okay, we can see you tried. You did your best. You can't carry it all on your shoulders, so we'll at least give you some PSR for your loss. I get that. I actually somewhat like that a little bit, because if my rest of my team is entirely potatoes, I don't really have to worry about them. I can just go like, okay, I just need to focus, do some of my own damage, get either a plus minus 0, as in don't lose PSR, or I could possibly gain PSR if I do a lot of damage. So as a solo player, it would then say to me, well, I should just keep fighting. Even if this is a losing match, I should fight my heart out because I might win some PSR. I hope that that concept doesn't go away, and it's more like it in a new system wouldn't be just like, oh, well, we're losing, I might as well throw my mech away sort of mentality. I don't want to encourage that. I like the idea that if you do dramatically better than we expected you to, you're still going to gain a bit, but hopefully that can be worked into the system somehow. However, what they're talking about here, zero-sum distribution. What happens currently in the game is that the pilot skill rating, that rating is being inflated. So if you had a certain amount of players in the game, they would all have a rating. You could count it all up and say, within the game, we have this much skill rating that is distributed between this many people. Over time, with the current system, that amount of total rating within the system would slowly increase as more people are pushed towards tier 1. So they would inflate. But just like a currency inflating, it makes your PSR less valuable. Because if everybody can get to tier 1 just by playing a whole bunch, well, who cares if you're tier 1? Everybody gets there. It's not special. And so as PSR values within the game have just increased and increased and increased, the relative value of each bit of PSR has decreased because there's just so much of it. A zero-sum distribution says that no matter what, the amount of skill rating total within the system can't change. If you want to move up, you have to take it from somebody else. So the winning player would take the PSR from the losing player. Winning player goes up, losing player goes down. That's the main point that the current system doesn't have, is the losing player going down portion. It's not enough to balance out the inflation that we have. So continuing on, now that we have that as a primer so you understand what we're talking about. That being said, we have a plan to make PSR zero-sum, but there's a huge drawback. If we make this change, the PSR rankings for all players will need to be reset. That means if you're tier 1, you'll be going back to tier 4 for a bit. If you're tier 5, you're also going back to tier 4. Okay, because we have such an inflated quantity of PSR in the game right now, just like a currency that massively inflates, we need to push that currency aside and then re-establish a new currency that has its value still. And then control the currency by taking portions of it out and balancing it appropriately by having it so there's only ever a set amount within the system. You can never add more to it and take away from it is always the same. It's just going to get distributed differently. Yes, please do this. There is a multiplier in your first 20 games all players play that push your PSR changes higher or lower to speed the seeding process of the PSR distribution. After those 20 matches, regular PSR zero-sum values will be used. We need your feedback on whether this is acceptable or not, losing current tier standings. Hell yes. This would be awesome. One big issue that's been in MechWarrior for years has been the fact that if you just play enough, if you sit down and grind out hundreds or whatever amount of matches it takes you to get to tier 1, you will eventually get to tier 1. I have seen some true potatoes at tier 1 where I go like, wait, how did you not see that guy? Or how do you not know how to deal with a light that's nomming on your ass? Like, you're tier 1, you should be able to get a light off your butt, sort of thing. Yeah. Going back to tier 4, I don't care. Send me back to tier 4, I'll fight my way back to tier 1. Because then tier 1 is an actual bloody accomplishment. It's no longer just like the, oh, your experience bar is all filled up. Well, welcome to tier 1. It's more like the, whoa, you're tier 1. Like, look at those battle scars from him fighting his way up here, having to beat back all the, like, sharks that are floating around there, just ready to eat you at the moment they show any weakness. Because the people that should be at tier 1 should be the kind of pilots that you can just go, like, what's your, oh, you've got this mech, it's most likely the meta build on it. What do you have? Oh, you can hit that guy across the map every single time because you're good. You're top tier pilot. I would love this. This is actually something that would bring me back and play the game for a while. I would probably make a video series out of it, fighting my way back to tier 1 and seeing how the matches change over the duration. They also say here there's a multiplier for your first 20 games. I know that's for when you just start an account, but I would say maybe do a lighter multiplier or even just re-establish this for returning players. If you have a player that hasn't played in the last X amount of months and they boot up the game and are playing again, hell yeah, accelerate them back to where they should be. That way, the whole thing will get worked out faster. The only downside of this is that essentially you're taking all those badass players from tier 1 and pulling them back to tier 4 for a duration. So there is going to be this like the sharks smell blood in the water sort of mentality. We're going to go out and seal club all these newbies kind of feeling for a couple weeks, maybe. Not sure how long it would take. But every single time when you have a returning player that was an old tier 1 that actually deserves to be in tier 1 and they come back at tier 4, it's going to be like they're smurfing. For a while. But they'll quickly get out of tier 4 and they'll be in tier 1 and they'll kick ass there. I am for this change. I want this to occur. This would actually make me play the game again. This would actually make me make some content for the game again. And this is good. Only last point I have is relating this to, say, World of Tanks. World of Tanks does the same thing. They have 3 out of 15 being a group, where we're going to have 4 out of 12. Ours is 33% being a pre-made group. Theirs is 20% being a pre-made group, of group to the total size of the team. I think our 33% is actually a little too high. I personally would like it to see it at 3 out of 12. So the largest group you can make is 3 mechs. That probably won't go over very well. We're already going down from people being able to make their 12-mans and their 8-mans or whatever they wanted to do in group queue, and now they can only make 4. Yeah, I understand, but I don't know. I'll compensate. 4-man groups, that's fine for now. I would have liked it to be like a 3-man group out of 12. That would have been 25%, which is closer to 20%. Not all the way there, but at least it's not 33. I'll compensate with 4 out of 12. I'll live with that. The next thing to do, if I want to go on a tangent here and ramble, because why not, would be to address spawn positions. People are going to deathball anyway, so why separate us out, especially on some maps that just pretty much go, well, I'm in this mech going this top speed in this spawn location, I might as well alt F4, because sometimes you get in those situations. Just drop us as an entire group. Why not? Okay, I'm just starting to ramble into a whole bunch of other things that I want to change with the game. I gotta cut it off there. But in terms of this change, I like it. This will make me play the game. This will make me make content about the game. Please put it in. Tell me when it's in. Then I'll play. And I haven't said this in a very long time. Oh, it feels weird. Good hunting out there, fellow mech warriors. And thanks for watching.